This is a video about solving the corners of a 4x4 blindfolded. I'm not going to teach any particular method because all the methods are just taken from 3-blind. I'm just going to talk to you about the big difference between solving corners on a 4x4 and a 3x3, and that is the center safe algs. So on a 3x3 you can twist the center without making any significant differences to the look of the cube, unless you've got like a silly cube where if one center was twisted, let's twist some centers, so you can see that with one center twisted here, it makes a difference. But on a normal 3x3 it doesn't make any difference at all. However, on a 4x4 the centerpieces, all 4 centerpieces will move round if you do an alg that twists centers. So if you're solving the corners before the centers, and you don't use center safe algs, your centers are no longer going to be where you memorized them, and it's all going to go wrong. So you need to know which alg is center safe. Basically you can work it out yourself by counting the turns of each face in each of the algs that you use. Basically any commutator based method will be fine. So BH and 3OP are good. Some speed optimized BH might not be center safe though, so be careful with that. The main thing is that old Pockman corners are not going to be center safe. So if you solve corners just by spamming loads of Y perms with setups, that's going to screw around with your centers. In fact, what we know is that a Y perm does a U prime to the centers on that face. So if you do a Y perm, say you do 2 Y perms, what's going to happen is that all the pieces are going to look like they've resolved, but this piece will have gone to there, and this piece will have gone round to there, and they'll all have rotated 180 degrees after 2 Y perms. So if you really want to use old Pockman corners, then there is still something you can do, which is to count the number of Y perms that you're doing. So if it divides by 4, then you're absolutely fine and you can just carry on as normal. But it doesn't, then you've got to basically keep track of what you've done to the U centers. And when you finish the corners, you can do the move to move the centers back to where you memorized them, and then you could solve the centers and then undo that move again, so that all your corners go back to where they should be. That's after solving centers. So the other option is to solve corners last, and then you don't have to worry about being center safe, because hopefully you're going to have whole blocks of colors there. Anyway, so if you do like 3 Y perms or something, you're going to have done U prime, U prime, U prime. So you solve corners like that, do 3 Y perms, and then you just do a U prime. So that will make your corners look something like that. They'll look unsolved, but your centers will be back to where you memorized them. So then you solve centers, and then you've got to remember to do your U after you've solved them. The last thing about corners is that you can get permutation parity, just like on a normal 4x4. So I've got permutation parity here. So yeah, you know when you've got it, because I'm sure you know from 3-blind when you've got it. So you just leave 2 corners, and then right at the end you just solve it. I mean, you've got a number of choices, but basically I'll just do a T perm or something, and then do the permutation parity alg, swap the edges. And that's basically all it is. That's all there is to say about solving corners on a 4x4 blind. Thanks for watching. So here's a short comment on how to solve bigger cubes blindfolded. So you should have already seen how to solve the 4-blind, and adapting it for bigger cubes isn't very difficult at all. So on 5x5 you now have 2 sets of centers. You've got the plus centers and the X centers, and they solve exactly the same as 4x4 centers. You can use commutators to solve those. exactly the same sorts of commutators. It shouldn't be at all difficult to figure out. I guess one of the big differences is you can't choose your orientation at the start of your solve, because you have fixed centers, of course. So you do the center the same, and then you can use R2 for the wings, and you're going to have to use M2 for the middle edges, which is basically the same as R2. You probably already know M2 though. So you can use that, and then corners, same as with any big cube, you need to be center safe. I mean, once you've done those two, bigger is just the same, just more to memorize. Again, this time you have 4 sets of centers and just 2 sets of wings instead of wings and midges, or just wings. And on the 7x7, you've got 6 sets of centers, 2 sets of wings, and the midges. As for volume, there's 56 pieces on the 4x4. It's about 2.5 3x3s. 5x5 has 92, so it's about 4.5 3x3s. The 6x6 has 152, so that's 7 3x3 cubes, and the 7x7 has 212 pieces to memorize, so that's about 10 or 11 3x3s in volume. So it shouldn't be too hard once you've got a 4-blind success to move on to the big ones. I got my first 5-blind success the day after my first 4-blind success. I just sort of looked a bit into M2 and then went for it. Yeah, that's about it.